World Jam Global Radio. This is Clarity.
Well, it's another good evening from me, Kervin, Julien on Issues Today. Whoa, have we got a show lined up for you tonight?
Time I paid for my crime. I already did my time. I paid for my crime. I already did my time. I paid for my crime.
Our special guest tonight on Issues Today is none other than Mikey Blue here, founder of Film the Cops, Oregon, Portland.
Back in the day, I didn't really care about the system. It was all about survival.
Also tonight we have our regular co-host, Dr. David Ramey,
Rivals,
PhD.
Just staying.
Come on now.
I learned my lessons in the streets. There was not a man I couldn't beat. I was good with my hands and very quick on my feet. I was swimming in women. I had girls all over the street. I was getting money. Life was so sweet.
World Jam Global Radio. This is Clarity.
I'm a changed man. Don't need no gun in my.
7 days have passed since the last time we met right here on Issues Today.
Spend it all in jail. Trying to cope with this.
And there are many things that have popped up on the media right across the world to attract our attention.
Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime.
The one that really caught my mind this week was the video that popped up on Filming Cops, the one on Kelly Thomas.
Already did my time. I paid for my crime.
I got to admit that one actually brought a tear to my eye. Well, more than a tear, I was very tearful after watching that particular video of the young homeless man absolutely brutally murdered by the police.
I had to repent. I must admit.
Great responses from you once again.
Shit. Now sit back and think it over since I've gotten older. The life I used to live, I wouldn't do it again. I was young and dumb, my brain.
And wow, did you see how many people turned up at Washington, D.C.? 10th of the 10th, 2015.
Terminator must
That didn't make the headlines, but it did on the media source.
spit you out like
Facebook was alive and kicking with pictures of hundreds and thousands of people congregating and descending down on Washington, D.C. A swarm of people.
already did my time. Paid for my crime. Already did my time. Already did my time. Paid for my crime. Already did my time. Pay for my crime. Pay for my crime. Pay for my crime. Pay for my crime.
You know, and the reality of it is, you know, whatever's going on around the world, and you know, whatever people do and however people behave, murder is unacceptable in any shape or form.
Have the right to vote and live like an ordinary citizen again. This is my message to all of my friends in the pen, statewide.
The privilege to protect and serve
There was not a
does not give you the right to bully and murder.
with my hands and very quick on my feet. I was swimming in women. I had girls all over the street. I was getting
Right here on Issues Today, each and every single Saturday,
changed the whole
along with my co-host Dr. David Ramey,
change
and with the help and support of our wonderful producer Linda Sue,
without being no
we'll bring you issues that really matter,
at all in jail.
trying to make a difference.
Cope with
Do the bit we can where we can.
already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime.
There are opinions reaching out all over the place.
Time. I paid for my crime. Already did
Tonight we examine some more.
for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime.
World Jam Global Radio. This is Clarity.
I was a drug dealer, sold more drugs than Superfly, but I never got high on my own supply. I'm not proud of what I had to do. That's why I'm telling my story to you and you. I had to repent. I must admit, I was doing all kind of.
Now that was a very special track written for this show by my good friend Ronnie Canada, because we've been having problems with our opening tracks. That we've been using, our Marvin Gaye, What's Going On. YouTube has been shutting down our shows and muting all the sound just for the one track. So we've had to find another track to open the show with. Paid for My Crime, Ronnie Canada, a good friend of mine's from Ohio, who lives out here in the UK right now. Former member of the Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, and he also used to sing along with the Drifters. So Great pedigree. Right, tonight I am not gonna prolong this any longer. I'm gonna hand you straight over to the introduction from my shotgun rider, my co-host, and my good friend, Dr. David Rumey. Good evening, David. Hi, David.
Hello, Kervin.
Hello, David.
Mike.
How are we doing?
I'm in Connecticut. I'm looking from my office over the great Atlantic Ocean. I see big, beautiful, bulbous clouds, clear and translucent with the sun from the mighty heavens. It's gorgeous. You should be here.
I'd love to be there. David.
I'm so happy we have Mike, a man of immense courage, and I've seen some of his videos, and I don't know to cry or to laugh at them, but the insanity and stupid people who he films amazes me.
Absolutely.
Let me tell you what's happening in America this week. We had the first Democratic debate, and Hillary blew the competition out of the pack. If she was a baseball player, she would be one of the greatest batters of all time.
Wow.
She took on Sanders, who's a very nice man, Bernie Sanders, but she nailed him to the wall on gun control. He's from rural Vermont, where they love their guns. And then she nailed him on the wall on capitalism in Denmark. Something's fishy in the state of Denmark, you know. But anyway, everybody said she won the debate overwhelmingly. And I'm just happy that Bernie is in the race because he has brought her to the left a little bit. And now she opposes the Keystone Pipeline, which would pollute the living dickens out of America and run over the most important reservoirs of water underground in all of America on the Great Plains. Also, she has turned against TPP, which is the trade agreement with 18 nations in the Far East, which would further take American manufacturing jobs, reduce us to a bunch of clerks in stores selling goods from people being paid 50 cents an hour, and further hold down the wages in America and increase the profits of the wealthiest 1%. So I'm glad Bernie Sanders. Kervin, your chair is squeaking like an old woman on Psycho.
Yeah, I know. I've tried to sort it out. It didn't work. I think I'm going to have to get a new chair.
The highlight of my week, ever since 2002, I have opposed the Iraq War. When we went in March 2003, I was furious. I felt like an old noodle on a man in a 90-year-old nursing home. I was impotent to do anything of value to stop that war. I felt like a good German opposing the Nazis. And now Donald Trump, who is the biggest irritant to Jeb Bush, the brother of the criminal George Bush and son of the father George H.W. Bush, called Trump out this week and said, in response to Jeb Bush piously saying that, well, my brother kept us safe. Well, Trump said he didn't keep us safe. On his watch. 3,000 people were killed on his watch. America was invaded on his watch. What do you mean he kept us safe? Well, the greatest thing of that was to see the reporter, an anchor woman on the news, say, you can't say that. And he said, well, I can say whatever I like. It was like no one to say the truth. Kervin, that chair is driving me crazy, my friend. Okay, next thing is McCarthy admitted that the entire Benghazi committee was a political sham with a bunch of Republican shills trying to do Hillary in and bring her numbers down. Once he's admitted that, he's basically giving Hillary Clinton a get-out-of-jail-free card. She's about to testify to Congress next week. And when she does, she'll be able to level them as though they're pancakes underneath a dump truck.
Wow.
Two more items. Israel is approaching its third intifada. The American people are being misled and misinformed. They have no idea of what is going on over there. You have Israeli extremists who believe that the law of the land was written by Moses 3,000 years ago instead of by the United Nations, which created that country in 1948. They carry weapons of mass destruction, automatic machine guns. They go into Palestinian villages. They burn down their olive trees. They shoot their goats and sheep. They burn down the family houses, and they shoot them in cold blood as though they're stray animals, rabid with some kind of a wolf canine infection. And it is disgusting. And then the Israelis got all over our news and say, Ron Dermer and Ginsburg and the rest, oh, they have knives. They have knives. Well, a little guy on TV Thursday was running through a checkpoint, and he had a pocket knife, and the Israeli police shot him 17 times in cold blood. Well, MSNBC was live. They showed it. But after that, no one ever saw the film again. They embargoed the film, and they're not showing the reality. Now, if that had been a Palestinian who had gone up and killed an Israeli and pulled his guts out and wrapped it around his neck and ran away and then hanged himself on a tree, it'd be all over the television because that was harm done to an Israeli. And until we have a balanced perspective of what is going on in the Middle East, and until we can see every human made in God's image and by God made, we are not going to have peace over there. The best way to truth and justice and peace is simply to be balanced about what is going on, to face the consequences, and demand that the occupied territories be returned to the owners who should have them already. Now, the last thing is, and this is going to interest our fantastic, courageous, brave, entertaining, fun, and marketing guest, Blue Hair, Mike Blue Hair, what a name. Okay, let's go get him. I could not believe what happened when yesterday morning I turned on the television and I saw a boy 17 years old, blonde and blue, not your typical victim of police brutality. Usually they're black or Hispanic, blonde and blue-eyed like he just jumped out of an Easter egg in Stockholm, Sweden, sitting in his car, stopped by the police. Now, why was he stopped by the police? Because the policeman was driving down the road at night after this boy had dropped his brother off at a local church and was going to visit his girlfriend. And the policeman's high-rated vehicle had powerful lights, and the boy, as anybody would do, blinked the cop, not knowing he was a cop, just blinked the oncoming car to lower his high beams. Well, the policeman turned on his lights because how dare you tell a policeman what to do? My God, this is a power struggle that is deserving of the creation itself. Let there be light and police were born. And what did he do? He turned around, he stopped the guy, the boy. He told him to get why. The boy said, "Why are you stopping me?" He said, "Because you blinked me with your lights." He said, "Well, you were driving dangerously. I was just trying to be polite. Give me your license." "Why do you want my license? I didn't do anything wrong." He said, "You're being stopped. Give me your license." And he said, "Do you have your license?" And then the boy kept on. Finally, the policeman said, if the boy tried to call his father on the phone, the policeman said, "Put down that phone right now. Put down that phone right now. If you don't put that down, I'm going to laser you." So the boy got out of the car at the instructions of the police. He kneeled down. This is all on film. He kneeled down. The cop then said, "Lay on your stomach." And he bashed the boy. And the boy said, as he was being put down on the ground, he said, "Look, this is how freedom is in America." Meanwhile, he was taping the entire conversation with his cell phone. The cop kicked the cell phone or hit it hard, and it went about 3 meters in front of the boy onto the ground. And then the cop tried to laser the boy. Now, this cop is much bigger than this 17-year-old boy. He tried to laser him, but he was so close to the boy, the laser didn't stick in. At that point, the boy, naturally scared, no different than an animal with a survival instinct, jumped up. Then it goes off film, and the next thing we know is the boy was shot dead with 7 bullets in him. 7 bullets in him. Now, I watch crime shows, and they say when a victim is stabbed 8, 10, 15 times or shot many times, there's a viciousness, a motive, an evil there. It's not a matter of doing a job like a bullet in the back of your head. It is a real anger killing. Yeah. And that is what has happened, and I saw that on TV. And let me tell you what upset me the most, and I hope our good guest Mike Bluehair gets into this. Not so much the evil of the policeman, What upset me the most is almost every single reporter in America, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, NBC, every one of them defended the cop. The cop was right. The boy should have obeyed the cop. In other words, we are instructed when police show up to be absolutely slaves and subservient to their commands. And they justify the murder, and I call it a murder, of that 17-year-old boy who his mother gave birth to, who she bottled, who she bathed, who she diapered, who she sent to school, who she argued with about dating girls, who she read his report card. That boy will never again kiss his mother and father. And that policeman is out there feeling justified that because of a traffic stop in which the boy was doing what is considered by most people correct in telling another driver to lower his head beams, that boy is 2 meters below the earth in cold, dark ground, never to breathe the air again. And that's what's happening in America this week.
Thank you very much for that, David. And it really does, round up a few things, especially when you bear in mind that my thoughts has been firmly laid down on Kelly Thomas is another one that was reawakened in me this week. But we have a guest with us that can throw the light on many of the issues that a lot of us are seeing popping up on the media all over. And one of the greatest tools that we now have is people that are actually out there filming cops. There are a lot of films going up on social media, on YouTube, of various interactions and encounters with police, and many citizens around the United States of America are getting very brave and courageous by pulling out their phones and filming these incidents, posting them, or at least making them available so that people can actually measure them against the crimes that some of these people have been accused of before they were killed. But one person that we have with us tonight, who is the founder of Film the Police Portland. He's an activist, he's a reporter, he's a videographer, and he has probably more video films of police encounters than anybody else's library across the world. Our very special guest tonight is Mikey Blue here. Good evening, Mikey.
Hi. First of all, I'd like to thank both of you for giving me the opportunity to talk about the most important issue of police accountability. What you were saying, Doctor, evoked an emotional response from me. The boy that flashes high beams at the officer and was murdered for it. I would characterize that as a murder as well. But first thing that pops into mind when you went through this story was the only reason anybody even knows that murder happened was because the boy filmed it.
Absolutely.
If he did not film that encounter, he would just be another number somewhere in a computer and no one would even know about it. It would be completely swept under the rug, but at least people can talk about it now. I'm 99% sure that cop will get off on that. There will be no justice. There's something that people can do to prevent their videos from being harmed while they're filming the police. And when you said the cop kicked the camera, I immediately thought of something. I use an iPhone, and there's an application in the settings of iPhone called Guided Access. And guided access will allow you to fix your iPhone to where it cannot be turned off and the recording cannot be ceased. So if you have an iPhone and you're having it in your mind to film a police encounter, I highly recommend Googling guided access. It's already on the settings in your phone, and you can fix your iPhone so the police cannot interrupt your recording. The only way they can interrupt your recording is destroy the phone.
Wow. Well, that's a good bit of information.
Let me ask you this, Mike. I've got two questions. One a quick one, and one in response to what you just said. Okay. First of all, I want you to answer how you got the name Blue Hair. So, now that's less serious.
You need to see the picture, David.
Okay, but the second one, okay, I thought it had to do something because they say men in blue are cops, so I didn't know if it had anything to do. Second, the second thing I had to ask you is, the other night I saw the news and there was a girl in Louisiana or somewhere, and she decided to use something I don't know. It's called Periscope, and she was actually live streaming herself driving drunk. And somebody happened to see that on the internet, called the local police. The police began to looking at the live stream. They located her, sent out like 15 cars, and they found her, and they arrested her for drunk driving. And I'm thinking, is this Periscope also a good method of doing what you just prescribed?
Sure, I'll answer
in terms of not letting.
There.
Okay, go ahead.
Sure. The first question is, I was highly involved in Occupy Portland, the Portland, Oregon spinoff of Occupy Wall Street, and I was involved in a group called Occupy Portland Media Coalition, and I just so happened to have picked the hair color blue at that time. I've had a mohawk for as long as I could remember, and I dyed my hair blue during Occupy. People started calling me Mike Blue Hair. The name stuck. Okay, to answer your question about Periscope. Periscope is what you call a live streaming app, meaning anybody can download Periscope to their phone and they can archive video footage to the web in a way that can't be taken down. Even if the cops smash your phone after you've started filming with Periscope, the video footage cannot be destroyed. There's multiple apps like that. There's Bambusher, there's Ustream. Bambusher is my favorite one because of a lot of the features, but they're called live streaming phone apps, and anyone can get them, and they are a very good police accountability tool. Now, if you pair a live streaming cell phone app with the setting called guided access that I talked about earlier, what you have is a live streaming phone that can't be turned off or the recording can't be ceased. That's archiving live to the interweb. So if you're going to film the police, I would highly recommend pairing Periscope, Bambusher with guided access. So yeah, I think I fielded those two questions pretty well.
Thank you.
Go ahead, carry on.
Actually, that's very interesting because if it's filming and you can't turn it off, and the police try to do something with your phone, that would actually be recorded that they're trying to do something to your phone, right?
Absolutely. I've developed a mental list of protocols that I go through when I film the police, and almost everything I do is set up, all my behaviors. It might seem like I'm just some jerk that gets off on cussing cops out, but everything I'm doing is kind of bait. I am hoping that they will trample on my rights a little bit because I'm setting them up. And the reason why I want to do this is because I want to get into the court system. An activist's job is to commit acts of social or civil disobedience so that they can be arrested, so that the court system can evolve the law in a positive direction. I believe it's civil disobedience is a very important thing to be doing as an activist. Not to just get arrested for street cred or to be a rabble rouser for the sheer fun of it, but rather I'm willing to put my body and my freedom on the line in the hopes that court decisions get made that might change things in a positive manner.
Do you think that the more well known you are, the safer you are in terms of putting your body in the hands of police who have immense power over you?
Absolutely. I really believe that the more public someone can make their case or their conflict or their interaction with law enforcement, the safer they are. One of the things that police do, and in collusion with the mainstream media in this country, is when there's a police shooting, there's kind of a formula that's followed. And once I break this formula down, your listeners in the UK and even a lot of people in the United States will connect the dots. And here's the formula. First thing they do is they isolate the person from the media. the police and try to control the narrative of what people think. They vilify the victim of the crime by, whatever means necessary. If they've been convicted of a petty crime, hey, they stole a candy bar, they must be a thief. Like what was done with Michael Brown. They originally alleged after Darren Wilson murdered him in cold blood. They originally alleged in the media, and the mainstream media ran with this because the police gave them the information, that he stole some cigars from a convenience store just a few minutes earlier. But if you actually do deep research into that, he never stole that stuff. Like that never happened. That's all propaganda. And this formula is followed. So one of the things a lawyer will tell you when you first get into a conflict with law enforcement, when you get arrested or you think your rights are violated, is they say, well, don't publish anything on the internet. Don't talk about anything. Don't do any interviews, and don't put your video online. Well, the lawyers think like this. They want to limit your potential liability for you incriminating yourself, and to cover their asses in court because they want to represent you and do the best job they can. They tell you to not make things public. Well, that doesn't really serve the person that's being tyrannized by law enforcement very well, because there's already an inequality. They're already ice skating uphill in a legal battle from the get-go because of the the odds are stacked against the individual when they go up against the words cop in court. So, this formula is followed. So I would say definitely the more public you can make what happened to you, the better.
You know something? A good friend of ours who's tuning in from over Florida, Ninjet, has just made this point. It is sad that we have to live stream our interactions because we know they will tamper with evidence and lie, and increasingly so. You made the point a short while ago, Mikey, about the incident that David was talking about, which was that had that lad not been recording what was taking place, no one would have known about it. Well, here's the question, right? How many incidents have taken place where it hasn't been recorded and we are none the wiser? And that's a bigger question than the ones that we can actually visualize right now, because I'm quite sure...
So it happens every day.
Absolutely. But
every day.
Is it not sad that the only way that we can protect ourselves in modern society, living in the 21st century, is that we are now having to record, or hope that somebody else records, every interaction that we have with the law enforcement agencies in order for us to have a hope that we stand a chance of being treated fairly?
It's sad and heartbreaking, and it's one of the reasons that gives me the animus to do what I'm doing. I would like to give your listeners a little breakdown of my background so people know the direction I'm coming at this from.
Before you give them a direction of your background, the one question I would love to ask you, and for you to answer first, is what was the primary incident that sparked you into movement, that made you decide, I'm going to do this?
Well, I'm actually the co-founder of Film the Police Portland. The mother of my god baby, Justice Cascadia, is his name. He's an adorable little child. Carrie R. Medina, which was a woman that worked with me in Occupy Portland, 2 years ago, she was filming. She was a live streamer. That's what she did for Occupy. She was filming a 16-year-old boy prostrate, face down on the ground, from about 30 yards away, and the police had him on the ground. Later, they found out that he was a suspected litter suspect. So this black teenager was laying face down on the ground 30 yards away. She's live streaming, and she gets off the bus, stands there. A policeman immediately approaches her within minutes, walks the 30 yards to her and demands her footage. Well, Carrie knows her legal rights. She said, not without a subpoena. I don't consent to you giving you my phone. And he's all, well, you have to. And she's all, well, I can give you a link for the live stream because this video is being recorded live. Well, long story short, the cop grabbed her, twisted her arm, snatched the phone away, and confiscated it. Well, what the cop didn't realize is that she wasn't lying. It was indeed a live stream, and within a week, she was on NBC News, on Russia Today, BBC picked it up, and right now she's going through a lawsuit. The ACLU is representing her to sue Portland Police Bureau, to sue TriMet, to sue our mayor's office, and the specific officer that twisted her arm. So after that happened to Carrie, she and I got to talking on the phone, and we decided, we thought about what could we do to make sure this doesn't happen to other people. And we decided to form a cop watching group. She's kind of the heart of the organization. She's going to handle things from a legal kind of perspective, and me, I'm kind of like a worker bee. I decided to throw myself into this, and over the course of the last 2 years, I've documented about 800 complete police encounters, and I have over 1,040 videos online in regards to the subject of police accountability. When I do something, I throw myself into it completely, and I do as much of it as possible and immerse myself in it completely. And that's what I've done with this police accountability organization, Film the Police Portland. Every weekend, I meet in Central Precinct in downtown Portland, Oregon, with a group of volunteers, and we document the police activity in a very systematic way. We listen to police scanners, we separate into groups of 2, we walk a beat like the police do, and we stop and film every police encounter we can. And I put up every video, whether it's a positive interaction with the public or a negative interaction with the public.
Wow. Okay, and so in all of this now, you've been doing this for what, 2 years, you say?
Yes.
With over 1,040 videos online. So,
sure.
What's the worst footage that you can remember videoing in your life?
I have 2 answers for that. One is America's collective conscience or unconscious is a very creepy, scary thing. I think America is in a police state right now. I think, and I believe, it's my belief based on my observations, that the majority of Americans suffer from a cultural Stockholm syndrome. You're familiar with Stockholm syndrome, yes, guys?
Absolutely.
Okay, so capture bonding, just so in case the audience doesn't know, Stockholm Syndrome is the idea that someone identifies with their captor and they start to sympathize with the person that's tyrannizing them. If someone's kidnapped or held at gunpoint, they start to, bond with their captor. I think through the interface with the mainstream media, through the interface with the ignorance that most Americans have about their legal rights and what policemen actually are and what they do for a living, it is such that it's fomented this cultural Stockholm syndrome. So I think when I'm filming a police encounter, I can be filming someone being arrested. Someone who's thrown up on themselves, someone who's completely drunk out of their mind, they're bleeding from their face, and there's cops on top of them, and you can hear people in the background laughing and saying arrest them, or there's people clapping, applauding the officers. People will walk by and take selfies with themselves while the person's being arrested, and personally, I find that kind of consciousness offensive and repugnant on a way that trumps the violence that I've seen. I find that way more offensive than the violence. But to answer your question about the violence, I can tell you stuff I've filmed and stuff I've seen with these eyes. And I will go through the background of myself a little bit so people can understand that where I'm speaking from. Where I learned what police were and how I understood what police were is I spent quite a bit of my adult life homeless. I spent from 1990 to 2005 living on the streets or squatting in abandoned buildings in places like L.A., San Francisco, Oakland, California, parts of New York, rural rural Missouri, like East St. Louis, and I've interacted with police hundreds of times during that time. I've seen, I've been a victim of police brutality. I've been kicked, slaps. I've had cops put me in handcuffs and bounce my face off the side of their car, and they joke and they say, watch your head. I know women who have been raped by policemen, and when they tried to report the crime, the police threatened to arrest her for criminal trespassing, for being on the property. During Occupy Portland, I had police in riot gear jump up and down on me and kick me. I have 3 bulging discs in my spine from a police beating. I've seen quite a few horrible things. And the stuff that I actually filmed, well, I was at the NATO protest in 2012 up there in Chicago. And the level of brutality I saw those police bring against those protesters was something that you would imagine seeing out of a documentary film of 1968. Police beating blacks during a civil rights protest. Yeah. I mean, they went into that crowd with truncheons and just aimed for the face and just clubbed people. There's in the mainstream media totally covered it up. When all the videos of these activists started coming out of all these protesters, I mean, little teenage girls and young 20-something, young adult males, the mainstream media actually ran stories saying that the protesters were dousing themselves with red paint to make it look like that they're being brutalized. It's just ridiculous.
I hear that.
Let's see, stuff I've seen. When I was at the NATO protest in Chicago, I watched the police. I had run out of battery at this point, but I watched the police zip tie a kid's hands behind his back, where they look like bread ties, but they're plastic flex cups, they're called.
Yeah. And
they held this kid up by his feet and dropped him on his head right in front of me. As far as I know, this kid might be dead. It's the stories that don't make the news, and the little guy, the average person, the homeless person, the poor black, the poor white, the poor Latina person or Latino person that has these interactions. And what I've seen and experienced is nothing. I'm not trying to be the king of oppression or I'm lucky because I'm white and I'm male in this society. I live in a racist society of violence. America is a culture of violence, and anybody who tells you otherwise, either they're willfully ignorant or they just haven't observed what actually goes on in the streets in this country.
You are absolutely correct. The fact that we have 7 guns for every American in this country, we love violence. We like it in our football, in our sports, in our daily lives. Guns, and
more guns, and more guns.
And the way people love it when people get beat up and hurt, they don't care. They love violence for some reason. And that brings me to a question I have to ask you. In your experience of filming these police, do you sense any kind of in your reflective thoughts, a psychological motive for this kind of behavior? Is it the type of people we recruit? Is it the militarization of the police? Has there been a change in our history? If so, why? And why do the general public support so freely the police side automatically? I know there's a lot of questions there, but maybe you can address them.
Sure, I'll be more than happy to address them. By the way, great questions. I love you guys so far. Most of the time when people interview me, they go through this softball kind of cookie cutter stuff. So let me get into that a little bit. First of all, I think there's basically 3 kinds of cops. There's a legacy type of cop personality, and this is a person whose family were cops, and their animus for becoming a law enforcement officer is someone They want to be a good sentinel for society. They want to be a good person. They want to help their fellow man. And in their worldview, becoming a police officer is a good thing and a good way to serve their community. And honestly, I believe the majority of cops that take on that job are of this type of personality.
In other words, what you mean is that they come in with that intention, right?
They come in, yes. I'll go through that in a moment. Okay, and the second type of law enforcement officer in my experience from seeing this is the I'm just doing my job kind of cop. They see the fact that, hey, I can make $58,000 entry level first year enforcing the law. So they're just about the paycheck. And then there's a third kind of cop, and this is the most dangerous kind of cop, is the operator type cop. This is a amoral sociopath, not a psychopath, but a sociopath that believes that they think they can get ahead in society and better themselves and get one over on the rest of the idiot masses by taking on this mantle of perceived power, and those are the ones that usually rise through the ranks and end up becoming politicians in the end, or heads of police unions, or police chiefs. A lot of them rise through the ranks. And a sociopath is different than a psychopath. A psychopath is someone who's driven by a compulsion. Mommy beat me, so I'm going to have to go and, kill women because, I'm getting back at mommy. A sociopath is someone who's very logically motivated. A sociopath is constantly weighing risk versus reward in their mind when they encounter any circumstance, and they act accordingly, logically. Sociopaths appear to be very emotional, but they don't really have emotions. They're kind of like a lizard-brained human being or a Cambrian-minded type person, where they only think about the basics. Their base animus is food, shelter, sex. How do I acquire these things in the most efficient manner possible? When I come across a situation as a sociopath, I'm going to weigh risk versus reward and act accordingly. And they are willing to do any manner of horror against their fellow man because they don't really care. They have there's a switch thrown in their brain where they can't access empathy. So those are the three kind of cops. And unfortunately, in my worldview, the system itself is broken. Complaining about a broken system that's never been designed in the first place to help you, to benefit you, is kind of illogical. The system's not designed to help, especially people of color and people of lower social standing, whether they be poor white or poor Latinas or whatnot. I would like to get into what a cop is actually in this country. Can I
before you go into what a cop is, I need to give you the fourth category. You've missed a category.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
Yeah,
I'd like a learning opportunity.
There is a fourth category of police, and the fourth category of police is the one who actually believes he is the law. There's a category of police where there's a policeman who actually believes he is the law. His way is the law. And that doesn't necessarily mean any form of a constitutional law that has been brought through legislation. He believes that he is the law, and he's there to enforce the law as he sees it.
I could see how that could be a subclass, or in my world experience, I've seen cops act that way, and I would tend to agree with you. But I'm just thinking in broad generalities. But I've seen officers who behave that way, like the feature film Judge Dredd.
There you have it.
Or the comic book series. Yes, there are cops like that. But yeah.
So let me ask you. So why would American society, a society based in law, a society that supposedly believes with all of our heart that all men are created equal and are endowed with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, life is something that police are taking from us every single day. We have 5 million people in our prisons without liberty, largely because cops have picked on the lower classes, the minorities, and because they are taught to lie proficiently. They're expert liars on the stand.
Oh, of course.
So you've got probably someone's typing. You probably have like 2 million people in prison because of either very, very minor crimes, because of the color of their skin, or because the policeman has lied about them. Now, having said that, why does our society tolerate it? Why do we tolerate these operator cops? Because the operator cops are the ones costing municipalities and counties and states the most amount of money. It's the operator cop who you have to pay $7 million in Charleston for because he went and shot a man in cold blood.
Sure. I can touch on that a little bit. Well,
one more thing.
Okay.
Now we are a capitalist society, and it seems to me that usually, for example, when President Obama got mad at Netanyahu about the Gaza war, because of the AIPAC lobby in America, he can't say much about Israel. But what he can do is tell the Secretary of State, don't let any American airplanes have coverage to fly there. In other words, say, we have now declared this a dangerous no-fly zone. Yeah. And what happened is the airlines are still free to fly there. The only problem is insurance will no longer cover them. So it's a capitalist response. So my answer is, when you hire these kind of cops who are operator cops, as you call them, what I would call a deal, why do the insurance companies not say to these municipalities, you need to psychologically profile your applicants and your hirees, because if you get one of these, we're not going to cover you? Why don't they do this?
Well, I can tell you very simply. Okay, most cities and states in the U.S. Have a very powerful police union known as the Fraternal Order of Police. Now, the Fraternal Order of Police is not only a union, but they also run legal funds for policemen to be able to legally defend themselves. You will not get elected in the United States in any large city without the blessing of the Fraternal Order of Police or the police union in the township that you're trying to get elected in. That's just not going to happen. These police unions are so powerful and have so much political clout that they will block police from ever having accountability. You know what I think should happen? You talked about insurance. I think every policeman in America should have to get insurance on himself that he pays for out of his pocket.
That's the one.
Listen to this. He pays for out of his pocket. And the more use of force complaints against that officer, the higher his insurance premium will cost. This will monetarily incentivize cops not to act like brutal assholes. It will directly affect their paycheck.
Absolutely. That is so spot on. Because the moment they become legally responsible for the contribution of their own insurance, which covers their accountability of conduct, that conduct would have to change. Otherwise,
absolutely.
Otherwise, they'll be working to just pay their insurance.
And then they're monetarily incentivized to behave in a manner that's consistent with the public image of what their job is. It really has nothing to do with their job.
Wait, let me say, what's going to happen is, okay, so this is like malpractice for a doctor. Well, what's going to happen is doctors, because they don't want to have this personal liability, they have gotten largely out of private practice and all work under either group plans or work under hospitals. And the hospitals pick up the tab for. And now, how are you going to prevent a municipality from picking up the insurance premium of these policemen?
Well, that's exactly what system we have now. Okay, that's what the police union set up right now. In many municipalities in the U.S., you cannot. It's virtually impossible to sue an individual officer for violating your rights because of a legal doctrine entitled qualified immunity. Okay. Google that. Have a lot of fun with that, people in the UK.
I looked at that. Yeah.
Oh, nice, cool. Okay. You mentioned, Doctor. You mentioned that all men are endowed with certain inalienable rights. Among them are life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, all this. Well, all men are created equal, but some men are created more equal than others in our actual legal system when you get down to nuts and bolts. I'll give a quick example. There is something called the Policeman's Bill of Rights, or the Law Enforcement Officer's Bill of Rights. In 14 U.S. States, police have a special Bill of Rights that they get, special legal process that everybody else doesn't get. And these set them up to be able to get away with crimes. I'll give an example. If I were to murder someone, right? Because Oregon has a police officer's Bill of Rights here in the state. If I were to murder someone, the police would immediately pick me up and immediately start questioning me about that right then and there on the spot. In Oregon, in the policeman's Bill of Rights, if they murder someone, right, and they're being questioned, they have to be questioned at a, quote, reasonable time, place, and manner. And this is 24 hours later. They're allowed a full 24 hours, and then they can actually be required to be questioned. And they also can have special counsel. They can also have any person of their choosing present at the time of their questioning. Any person. So if they say, hey, I want, some guy from Bora Bora, well, we're going to have to wait 3 days until he can get here from Bora Bora, yada, 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 crap. It's just ridiculous.
So you're giving them time. The 24 hours is to give them time to meet with everybody, to put their lies together and have them consistent.
Exactly. It's so that they can all write police reports that are carbon cutouts of each other so that their stories are correct. But
and the only way out of this is people like you filming it, or a citizen filming his own incident.
Well, that is the great equalizer. Never
really
until the 21st century has a recording technology become so ubiquitous that the average person can document what happens during a police encounter. But yeah, I mean, I would really, really, really love to go through what I think a cop is and how I perceive them in this country. May I?
Let's go through it.
Nice. Okay, here we go. A cop, in my worldview, in my world experience, is a class traitor. And what I mean by this is law enforcement officers are one class of people that get paid a living wage to make everyone else that doesn't get a living wage follow the rules. Police in Portland, Oregon get $56,000, $57,000 a year starting, entry-level wage. And they get, a few $1,000 raise every year. So it goes up and up and up. Our captains and sergeants make $100,000 a year, $150,000 a year. Our public information officer, the cop in Portland that runs Portland, Oregon's police Facebook page, our public information officer last year made $175,000 a year. And all he does is waddle out there in a little suit and disseminate propaganda, as I call it, and give the police version of the story. So you have one group of people that are entitled, that have special rules, special laws. They have, their own police officer's Bill of Rights. They have special laws to protect them. They have these massive police unions that protect them. They have qualified immunity, which protects them. People need to Google qualified immunity. It flabbergasts the mind at the level of protection and special rights police have. And what this does to their psychology is to make them believe they're special, make them believe that they're gods, that they are masters of all that they survey. And, how dare this young teenage boy blink his lights at a cop with his brights on? But obviously I have to, assert my dominance over him, and that's what it's all about. It's about cultural bondage and domination. This country has a BDSM, Stockholm Syndrome relationship with government that boggles the mind when you actually take a bold look at our society. We have a cultural sickness going on, which is worshiping authority. I'm in the business of killing gods. I mean, I think it's ridiculous. I get practically at least 3 death threats a month on my YouTube channel. And most of those comments are from videos where I cuss policemen out. You know, police can murder people like it's free in this country. People can beat homeless people to death if they want. Police can racially profile black people and, exhibit blatant, on its face, prima facie racism on a daily basis in this country, and people worship them as gods. But if I call a cop a douchebag or call him a fucking pig in a video, oh, that's beyond the pale. Oh, my God, what have you done? You know, people flip out. You know, personally, I know my civil rights. I will go and do something in public every once in a while to skate the edge of what's legal and what's not, just so a law enforcement officer can approach me. And if he's not stepping correct or following the rules, they know they're being filmed. I'll cuss him out. I'll make him look stupid. I mean, if you Google cop is mistaken bacon and look at that video, this cop actually tried to ID a friend of mine and myself, and I made the cop look ridiculous. And the reason why I did this is because I feel that until we as citizens can look at these quote-unquote gods and establish the fact that they are servants of the people, they are public servants. They are not above the law. They are not gods. And they must be pulled down and given a reality check. And however I can do that, I'm willing to risk them beating me up or, imprisoning me for cussing them out or for, how dare I challenge their authority. I'm willing to do this because I'm in the God-killing business. Wow. You know, these perceived gods need to be slain in our consciousness, or we're doomed as a society.
So, Mike, tell me this: what is it about American culture today that will tolerate that kind of behavior by basically? I don't want to use the word. When you use the word class traitor and sure. Masters, I'm thinking of the capos in the concentration camps who were Jews, but for extra food and lighter work, they oppressed our own people. I mean, these sure. capos, a lot of them after the war were killed by other Jews. They weren't allowed to live. But in the concentration camp itself, they were Jew traitors. They betrayed our people, and they went forward, and they killed many Jews. But the Jews didn't tolerate that.
So
even
Oscar
during the war,
the exception, not the rule.
Well, Oscar, he wasn't Jewish. But I'm saying the Jews themselves would kill the capo who was oppressing them. Why do we Americans tolerate this kind of overlordship from the plantation manners foreman? Why do we tolerate it? And why should a cop make $175,000 a year when I know a lot of doctors not making that for putting Facebook up? Sure. What about your city government? What about the members of your council? What about your neighborhood organizations? What about your school teachers who are paid probably less than cops?
So to answer your question, it's twofold. Okay, America is slowly evolving into more of a militarized society. America is evolving into the Spartans of the 21st century. The International Monetary Fund will lend a third world nation money, and then when they can't pay that money back, basically you have the United States through the UN sending our blood, our treasure, our soldiers into these countries after they've become financially dependent on these loans and their society falls apart. To go in and maintain order. We're the world's policemen. There's something that I call the totalitarian tiptoe or an incremental shift towards a totalitarian state. We are very slowly, one tiny little bit of legislation at a time, creeping towards this fascistic, militarized police state. The reason why people don't resist this police state is because it's done gradually. You know, you have all these militia groups all over the United States going, well, whenever we turn into a fascist police state, we're going to rebel against the government. But the thing is that they take our rights away, and they've been taking our rights away for hundreds of years, one little shred at a time, and people adjust to it. You know, the new normal is just a little bit more fascist than it was 2 weeks ago. The little normal is just a little bit more totalitarian than it was, 3 weeks ago, and so on. Okay, something else. How people perceive the world is mostly through the media that they consume. If you go way back to the genesis of brainwashing using TV in the United States, you will find a man named Herbert Krugman. Okay, Herbert Krugman in 1968 was a researcher who studied brainwave activity when people were watching television. And his first experiment was very simple. He attached an electrode to his secretary's head and compared her brainwave activity between when she was at rest, just in a normal state of consciousness, and he compared it to when she was reading, and he compared her brainwave activity to when she was watching television. Well, there's something called theta state in the human mind. Theta state is when your brain is producing more theta waves, you're at the edge of dreaming. You're in a state of near hypnosis. You're not quite under, but you're at near hypnosis. When Herbert Krugman attached the electrode to his secretary's head and watched this, her mind started going into theta state within 30 seconds of watching TV. As soon as Krugman published this information in 1968, he got hundreds of thousands of dollars in research grants to start researching how to modify television to be, quote unquote, a more effective tool for advertising. So television has evolved from 1968 until present to be the best awesome disseminator of information and to place things into your subconscious mind in a way that's so profound that it makes Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi propagandist, pale in comparison to what's going on right now in American television. If you turn on a TV in America, there's shows about cops, there's shows about judges, there's shows about the TSA, there's shows about animal cops and animal welfare, there's Law and Order Special Victims Unit, there's all this propaganda about the system of control. It's like if you turn on a TV, one would think that America is obsessed with bondage and domination because that's the only thing that's portrayed in our media is either cops or criminals. Okay, so those two things is one of the reasons. Sorry for going on a big long tirade, but you ask a complicated question, get a complicated answer. But these are some of the reasons why Americans are tolerating us becoming the Spartan shock troops for the New World Order in the 21st century.
Listen, I've got a question from one of our listeners, okay? And it's this. Gerard John Schaefer Jr. was an American murderer and suspected serial killer from Florida. He was imprisoned in 1973 for murders he committed as a Martin County, Florida sheriff's deputy. While he was convicted of 2 murders, he was suspected of many others. The question is, do you think that this new militarized police would have outed such a killer? It was his boss who caught Schaefer. In today's tight ranks of police, I wonder how long such a killer could subsist. Did you catch that?
Yeah, do I think that he would thrive? Well, absolutely he would. I mean, I would direct your listener to Google this. New York City cop planned on killing and cooking and eating women. They found him with they came into his apartment and they got all this evidence. there's something in America called conspiracy to commit murder. If you actually plan a murder and you reasonably have the ability to carry it out, they can arrest you. He had all these elaborate plans of killing women and basically eating them. Just type New York City cannibal cop.
The cannibal cop.
And nothing happened to this guy. Yeah. The cops get away with heinous crimes on the regular. Peaceful Streets Project, which is another cop watching outfit out of Austin, Texas, just published a story that talks about a cop that picked a woman up for drunk driving, turned off his dash camera. The woman claimed that he raped her, and nothing happened to the cop. They just put him right back out on the street. Now a logically thinking person would think this. Okay, is it logically feasible that the woman, A, knew that the dash camera was malfunctioning? I don't think the cop is going to say, hey, I'm going to turn the dash camera off now and rape you. And B, how could she accuse him of rape at the exact same time the dash camera went off? Okay, this is just one example. I am 100% sure this cop raped this woman just because of that. She's not going to have the presence of mind to accuse him of rape just at the right moment when what is she psychically going to somehow with her evil rape claiming psycho's female mind going to believe or figure out that the dash cam malfunctioned and then accuse the guy of rape? It's ridiculous. So I think that there are probably cops on the street right now murdering people or serial killers that are cops, and they're getting away with it. If you just have a naked look at what's going on. I mean, just a quick Google search will show you hundreds of examples of cops killing people.
Over here, Mikey, over here in this country, conspiracy to commit a crime is actually considered at times more serious than actually committing the actual crime. It's about the planned intention, and so therefore, if you have a group of people who are conspiring to rob or conspiring to murder, the sentences tend to be a lot heavier than had they just murdered or had they just gone out and committed a robbery, because it's the planning, it's the sitting down together and
absolutely conspiracy.
Yeah, go on,
conspiracy. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that conspiracy, the whole planning of this thing, right, is what's considered to be more serious than the actual acting out of the crime. Sure.
Conspiracy charges is the backbone of a lot of U.S. prosecution. I know in some states in the United States, if you make a phone call with a hitman, and arrange the murder of someone, you can be put in prison for conspiracy to commit murder. If you just talk about it on the phone with someone, yet they find this cop with these elaborate plans drawn out of how he's going to murder, cook, and eat women, and nothing happens to him. I mean, personally, that sends chills up and down my spine to think about a man walking around in our society planning on preying on women and eating them, and nothing happens.
Well, what happens too is I find that the police are either taught or learned by observation from their friends who are cops also, their colleagues. But we have a situation where people like you are filming an incident, and you have every right in a public place to film a policeman doing his duty. As long as you're not interfering with his work, you have the right. But what they do is they immediately accuse you of interfering with their police activity. And that gives them the right to either arrest you, detain you, to confiscate your camera, not to destroy the film, but to confiscate it at the moment, and to harass you in every way possible because, again, they're taught the edge of the envelope, how far they can go, and with what to accuse you to intimidate and inhibit you from doing what is your constitutionally protected right to do. Is that not correct?
That is absolutely correct. If you're going to form a cop-watching organization, if you're going to go and film the police on the regular, you will be arrested. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. I mean, there's things you can do to protect yourself. I'm
Okay,
dumb.
well, let me ask this before you go into that.
Sure.
First of all, if you're going to film the police, if somebody's listening, you want to become Mike Bluehair in America.
God help them.
There are three things you must do. It seems to me that the first and foremost is you must consider the man and the officers you're going to film, those police officers, you must consider them as an enemy force with a tremendous amount of deadly power. Is that correct?
Yeah, you have to constantly be on your guard. Hey, there's a friend of mine that wants to call in. Can you give the number so he can call?
If he's on Skype, we can introduce him straight into the group if he wants to get in there.
Sure.
It's very
just tell him how.
Is it a fella up in Minneapolis?
No, it's
we do have filmed the police up in Minneapolis.
Shane Butts. He's a fellow that I know that's an activist as well.
Get him to inbox me. Get him to drop his Skype address in there, and I'll get him. I'll do it all this end while we're talking.
Okay.
Are you able to do that?
Yeah, I think so. Hold on.
Just get him to inbox me on Facebook with his Skype address. I'll find him, and then we'll exchange pleasantries, and then I'll add him into the group.
Yeah, Shane, search Facebook for Kervin Julien. Sorry.
That's it.
Oops. Kervin Julien. So yeah.
Here's the thing, but I know we've been interrupted, and I just wanted to add a different point here, because based on what you guys are saying, over here in the UK, we actually have a couple of laws that give the police additional power to stop us from doing that type of thing. And one of the charges that they often come up with when confronted by an individual who's trying to champion the cause of somebody that they feel is being unfairly treated is obstructing the police officer in the execution of his duty. Now, I don't know if you have a similar charge out there stateside, but obstructing an officer in the execution of his duty is a simple charge that police can use to basically shut you up and get you out the way. So therefore, there's your friend being beaten to a pulp on the street, and you're trying to say to the officer, "This guy hasn't done anything wrong. He's my friend. I know him. Let him up. What you're doing is wrong. You know, he hasn't done it." And if you don't get out of their way and let them carry on what they're doing, they will automatically use this charge. I am arresting you for obstructing a police officer in the execution of his duty, and bam, that's you gone.
If I could jump in a second, I wanted to finish I had 3 points to make on that, on filming a police officer. I thought was important. Lots of power and an enemy force, that they're very dangerous, and that you have to weigh the risk of the reward that you're filming something important versus the risk of severe damage or possible arrest and worse if you continue. Is that not right? Do you not keep that? Someone's typing like crazy.
I think that would be a very healthy way to approach it. But there's some specific ways that you can ensure that you'll be the likelihood of you being harmed is lessened, and I'd like to go through that a little bit.
Okay.
When I brief volunteers to come and film the cops with me, I sit down and I basically explain their basic rights, and I pair them with a partner. You know, I'm dumb. I'll do it by myself because I think I'm crazy personally. I film cops quite a bit when I'm by myself, but always film with a partner. I would recommend never standing directly beside your partner because it limits the field of view of what your camera can see. Stand 5 or 6 paces apart, because if all of a sudden one of you become the focus of the police, you need to pan your camera to get that person covered. Okay. It's very helpful to put law enforcement at ease when you're approaching a scene to film them. You know, don't walk up behind them. Don't stand inordinately close to them. You know, I walk up and say hello and state my intention to document. You know, If the police ever tell you to step back away from them, I recommend pointing the camera directly at your feet and saying, "Sure, officer, I'll take a few steps back." And the reason why I counsel people to do this is because then you are documenting for the jury that you complied with the police's order. Because the police are trained expert liars. There's something in police training called creative articulation. You know, Mama called that a lie. Okay, they can legally lie to you. Okay, they do constantly. It's what they do. They're trained liars, and they're word ninjas. You know, and the reason why they'll say, "Sir, step back," is because if you pause when they say, "Sir, step back," they can grab you right there for interfering. So point the camera at your feet and say, "Sure thing, officer, I'll take a few steps back," and film your little feet moving backwards. And then you can level the camera right back up at the cop and smile because you were
so correct. Yep, you're right. And Kervin, I want to point this out. One of the great lawyers in America of all time, a defense attorney called Racehorse Haynes in Houston, Texas. Yeah, I saw him in a trial, and a policeman was lying on the stand, investigator for the district attorney, lying through his teeth. And I never will forget Racehorse Haynes said, "Now tell me, you're authorized to lie, aren't you?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "Do you take lessons in lying?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Are you a good liar?" And he said, "Well, I don't know." And he turned to the jury, Racehorse Haynes did, and he said, "Look at him. He's a trained liar. He's authorized to lie, but now he's lying about how good he's lying. Why, he looks like a jackass chewing on a cactus." I'll never forget that.
The best interview I've ever had. This is great.
That was one of the best things I ever heard in my life, you know. Now, I heard of it. I wonder if you heard. There was a case in Providence, Rhode Island recently. I don't know if you've heard of this, but that's our neighbor. Providence, from where I live, is about, I'd say 55 minutes drive. And it's a nice city, a lot of Italians, good food, Brown University. Well, they have a minority area. And a policeman came, and he was detaining a black woman who was, so to speak, I guess, femme de noir. And he was out there, and the policeman actually put his hands down the woman's pants. I mean, literally between her pants and her body. It was like nothing between that policeman and her except Calvin Klein jeans, and she wasn't wearing Calvin Klein jeans. So this man saw that, and he thought it was inappropriate behavior. So he went in his house, a black guy, and he took his cell phone, and he began to film. So the sergeant on duty told two other cops, "Get his phone." So the guy took off. He jumped over a fence, and he was running. They finally caught him as he was entering his house. They beat the hell out of him. They broke his leg. They took his camera. They deleted everything on it and threw it in the bushes. And then they reported that the man had tripped. They admitted to chasing him because they thought he had a weapon, no doubt. A cell phone's a weapon.
Is a weapon.
Absolutely is. They made a Freudian slip there. And then they said he slipped on his stairwell, and that's how he injured himself, even though his wife was home and said that's not how he injured himself. And that the newspaper said one of the things is that police say they tripped and fell when in fact they were responsible for that. Well, high water came, and here's what happened. The policeman got a 1-day suspension, and because of the policeman's Bill of Rights, I guess Providence has that also. Because of the Bill of Rights, they weren't, the people who were the victims were not entitled to have any further information, and a court order prohibited them from interviewing the police concerned.
Sure. Just two quick things. If he were using the guided access app on his phone, his phone would have kept recording. And if he would have paired the guided access app with a live streaming app, not only would his phone would have continued to record up until the point to where they smashed the phone, but it would have live archived the footage onto the interweb. So that would have turned out completely different. Something else, if you're an average Joe and you're out there in the world and you film a police beating, I will encourage you not to upload that video until about 2 or 3 days after. And the reason why is you want to wait for the police to lie. You want to wait for them to script a narrative that's not reality, and then you release your video on the internet. Because then you're establishing they're fucking liars in the court of public opinion before any legal recourse happens. So that's what I recommend doing. If you film a police beating or a police shooting and you're just a regular person and not an activist, keep the footage. Wait 3 days until the police lie about what happens, then put it on the internet.
We've just added to the group, to the call, Film the Police Minneapolis. Are you there, Derek?
Yes, hello.
Coming in.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you clearly, sir.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, Derek, what's up?
You're doing a good job. And you know, one of the things that I found interesting too, and just to back up what Mike was saying, is that you know, the media, you know, when a person of color, and I stated this in the chat thing here, when a person of color, like what happened in Boston, they would call that looting, and they would call us us thugs, and then when a non-white person would you know, have a riot over a football game, they just say, oh, you know, they just blowing off steam.
Absolutely true.
I mean, but it's common practice. I mean, there may be at times where we may even look as if we may be even minimizing or trivializing this police brutality issue that's going on. But as Dr. David Ramey and myself, who has been presiding over many shows with different organizations, including Anonymous and Black Lives Matter and the Guilty and Innocence, Greg Greer, with Timaya Rice and Sandy Bland and everything else. This is quite a serious issue, and the fact that people, everyday ordinary people, are having to walk with their phone in hand just in case. Well, man, that's a telling effect on our society, isn't it? The fact that people are having to walk around with their phone ready to record just in case. Now,
I agree with you 100%. And in fact, and I showed this video to Mike. Now in UK, I saw a video where a man was carrying a knife, and the police used shield to do this guy, didn't tase him, didn't shoot him, didn't do anything. And this was a guy that was actually not white, not a person of color, but he was Caucasian.
I can actually go one better than that, Derek. Let me tell you, I can go one better than that. I can tell you a story of a workman. This was a builder who had finished his day shift. He had been working on the building site all day. At the end of his work shift, he went into the pub down the road from his home so he could have a pint of beer before he went home for his dinner. Upon his person, he had his work bag, and in his work bag, he had a long spirit level, right? Somebody reported that there was a man in the pub with a gun. When this man left the pub and started walking down the street on his way home, having only stopped for one pint, he was surrounded by police who asked him to drop his bag, and before his bag hit the ground, he was shot dead. Now, this was a workman who had worked his shift for the day. So we are not immune to this death by color issue that you're having out there in America, although we've come a long way since that issue. There's been a lot of protesting, there's been a lot of fighting, and there's been a lot of legislation put in place. We don't have police carrying guns as you do out there in America. We have armed response units who actually are better trained, supposedly, and so we now have less issues. And there is also more accountability for police officers who fire their gun.
Now, let me say, Kervin, and I'd like to have our guest opinion on this too. I don't look at it as a burden or a task that we have to carry cell phones. I consider it a great privilege and honor. It's as though we have lived in a society where everyone around us who hates us and want to rule us have guns, but we don't. And suddenly we have guns too. Well, guess what? They're going to start paying attention to us, and they're not going to rule with the same level of intense violence. I think that in the old days, the only leveling playground was money. If you had money, if you lived in a good neighborhood, if you could afford lawyers, if you had political influence, the police are not going to bother you. But nowadays, the police have to really think that you have a cell phone, you have a smartphone, this is being filmed in New York and Washington. You can't go outside and pick a leaf off of a tree without it being filmed, although you don't have the sound as you do with the cell phone. And I think the cell phone has to a large extent leveled the playing field between the protected rich from the police and the occupied poor. I think the poor have had no opportunity to respond. No, they couldn't afford a lawyer. No lawyer wanted to represent them. The police were always right. No one questioned them. But the rich people, they could go behind the scenes and settle it because no sergeant wanted to take on the mayor's brother or the multimillionaire doctor's cousin like that. Am I right or wrong?
You're absolutely right.
I see the filming apparatus that's been made available in the iPhone 6 or Samsung, whatever you got. I see that as a great, great leveling field between the upper classes and the lower economic classes for the first time.
Absolutely.
It can be properly applied, absolutely. To summarize what you said, there's a popular anarchist chant that I like. It's police are the army of the rich, you know. I am an anarchist. I believe that if people would take more responsibility for their own lives and actions, that we would have less need for government. You know, I believe that a slave, when encountering a situation, will think, is it legal? And a free person would think, is it moral? Is it just? If people would think, is it moral? Is it just? Is it right? Before they act, we would have less need for laws. If people would think, you know, if there was a cultural value placed on treating your fellow man with more respect and more dignity, we wouldn't need so many petty laws. You know, there's so many minor infractions that get people into the legal system and then they're trapped. Their rights are taken away. They're stuck in a cycle.
It's planned that way. It's like going into a grocery store. There's so many things on sale to get you there. And these police are rewarded by giving out traffic tickets. There are quotas for them. The prison systems have gone private. They've got to put heads in beds.
Absolutely.
The whole security state is based on a profit system, and you can't forget that.
It's the justice system. You know, they call it the criminal justice system, and that name says it all. It's the criminal justice system.
By the way, just to let you know that we're also welcoming Shane Butts on the line now. Shane's with us also.
Hello, Shane. We're getting a big party here.
Hi, Shane.
I'm here.
Okay.
Is it coming through?
Yeah, loud and clear, sir.
Excellent. I'm on a mobile phone tether with like less than 3G speeds, so
that's fine. You're coming through nice and fine.
Okay, Shane, tell us who you are and where you're from.
I'm from Washington originally. Was born there. I'm living in Arizona now because I don't like the police state in Washington. Not a whole lot about me. I'm just kind of an average Joe that does lots of crazy stuff, and so that's how I met Mike and one of his buddies up in Washington.
Okay. Mike's got a few buddies now. Okay, listen. let's just hitting it right, because at the end of the day, what we were just talking about was the use of our phones, our iPhones, our Samsungs, or whatever they are, in order to not just to protect ourselves, but to protect our fellow man who we might be bumping across as we walk the streets and find them being accosted by a law officer. And you're quite right. It's an honor and a privilege to have one of these now, but it's also become a tool of necessity, hasn't it, David?
Absolutely. Absolutely, it's a necessity. This is like in the Wild West. If you were in Dodge City, you had to have a gun on your hip to survive. And nowadays we've come to the point where to survive from the very marshals or the police, you have to have a camera in your pocket.
How do we start getting this footage, these videos, to start making the police more accountable? Because it's fine having all of these videos, but one of the most discouraging things that I feel is that even in the cases of Sandra Bland and Joan Crawford and Tamir Rice and Walter Scott and everything else, what we're not seeing, right, is successful convictions of the police who perpetrate these crimes.
Well, I think I can fill that question real quickly. I think people need to start forming police accountability organizations and filming police in a systematic way. And you can't just make the video and think that's going to help. People need to tie their YouTube channels to social networks, your Facebook, your Twitter, and all that stuff, and start doing it in a systematic way. But I asked Shane to call in because I wanted to ask him a question on air.
Well, he's not here. Oh, he's here.
Cool.
Oh, good.
Oh, cool. All right. So I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on an effective strategy that we the people can implement to try to chip away at this police state or even reverse it? What would be some of your ideas for that, Shane?
I think the big one is to stop calling the police. We're too dependent on them. I think people can handle themselves just fine. And that to call the police frequently for everything simply it reinforces and it perpetuates the false necessity for their quote-unquote authority.
One question, Shane. One question. So here I am, a middle-aged woman sitting in my house, right? And I can hear screams coming from the house next door. I know, because I know the family that live there, that the woman in there is constantly beaten by her husband, right? On this particular night, he's absolutely beating the hell out of her. She's screaming at the top of her voice, and it sounds like this is going to be one step further than I've ever heard it gone before. Who do I call?
I think you should call someone other than the police. That's
not helping me. Who should I call?
Conservators of the peace. Private, non-protected, individual citizens whose job it is to protect people but have no authority to detain or escape the laws that we all have to follow.
Okay, so is anything like that set up at this moment in time?
No, and I think that's a good first step, is to set up conservators of the peace.
So therefore, at this moment in time, we can't not call the police. We still have to use and implement the tools that are there for us. And, don't get me wrong, guys.
Well, in America, that's a revolver.
we fully understand that. There is a whole cemetery full of bodies, a morgue full of bodies that have been cut down by the police. But the bottom line is, anarchy is anarchy, and I get all of that. But at the end of the day, there still needs to be some sort of there's got to be something that we lean on. There's got to be something that we believe in, hasn't there?
Well, yeah, sure. I believe generally it's self-defense. People need to take responsibility for the security of their neighbors.
But I get that. But me being a middle-aged woman, I can't go out there and pick on this big man that's beating up on his wife on his body.
I don't expect anyone to.
Okay,
we call firearms the great equalizer for a reason.
So who are we going to call to help this woman who's now screaming with the man sitting over her, pummeling her to the ground? We've got to be realistic. It has to be realistic.
Let me jump in.
Come on,
I don't
David.
think Shane said, I'm not speaking for Shane or defending him, but I don't think he said never call the police. He said we should call the police a lot less.
Right.
And I think what he means is if a man and a woman are fighting, maybe they should call a social services department that the government could invest in instead of overwhelming us with police.
In the meantime, the social service department will call the police.
Well, not always. If it's no violence involved, and the police could be outside. When the police show up, the situation is immediately escalated.
Absolutely.
And next thing you know, tempers are flying and guns are flying and somebody winds up dead. But let me address something really important because I know we only have a little bit left. One thing, as you know, I'm very interested in foreign relations and politics. And I always hear these irrational people like Ben Carson, who's running for president.
Now, David, you're not, David, this is not meant to be a comedy show.
Well, let me tell you something. This man operated on brains because he never found his own and he was looking for one. But anyway, Ben Carson said, in violation of Article 6, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution, no religious test shall ever be required of anyone seeking public office in these United States. And yet he requires a religious test to make sure you're not a member of the Muslim tribe. That's ridiculous. But instead of being afraid of Sharia law in America, which has got about as much chance as a grain of sand getting up and winning the Nobel Prize, I would like to point out that Israel is training massive numbers of American police in crowd control and use of weapons and the militarization of the forces. And we know how well that's worked in Israel, right? I mean, look at the intifadas, look at the deaths. And I'm reading an article.
You just brought up a very good point.
Wait, let me finish. There's an article called All Gov. And this is how it concludes, that the police are being trained all over America. And quote, this is a quote, whether it is in Ferguson, Missouri, or Los Angeles, California, we see a similar response all the time now in the form of a disproportionate number of combat-ready police with military gear who are ready to use tear gas at a short notice, Syed said. Whenever you find 50 people at a demonstration, there's always a SWAT team in sight or round about the corner. Israel's security forces have elevated American militarization. They have also trained the police in Mexico since 1994. And look at the Mexican police, what they do. So I think that we cannot ignore the fact, while these Republican neo-fascists are talking about Sharia law, which is a fiction in a cloud that came out of an elephant's rear end, we need to be concerned about Israeli forces training American police and the effect that has had on the violence and crime in our nation.
Well, absolutely.
I think,
the community. Oh, go ahead, Shane.
Okay, I think it's not just an Israeli problem. I think it's an American problem we have with our police force, in which I agree that we do over-militarize our police, and it is a huge danger. And I do agree about the Sharia law thing. There's not a shot in hell that's going to fucking pose a threat to America, and it's ridiculous. And I get a little bit sick of hearing conservatives, especially neoconservatives, lose their minds about it. But yeah, I do agree that the militarization of police is a huge problem here. They are far too quick to use overwhelming force on people. What in the military is called a show of overwhelming force, using an absolutely insane amount of force to quell your enemy without having to just completely beat them all down using fear tactics. It's terrorism. It's terrorism at its base.
Absolutely. Most recent is that I've seen. I don't know how many of you have seen the Jason Goolsby story. The banking.
I'm not familiar.
That's the banking while black. It's been broadcast as this was a teen who was arrested and detained while at the ATM, and they're now hashtagging it as banking while black. The law enforcement officers have stooped to a new low. This was not a man in the middle of a crime or even a suspicion of a crime. This was a man who was a young boy who was at the ATM to get money out of the machine with his card. And I you know, it's been popularized at the moment and doing the cycles on the social media. I just thought you guys might have picked up on that already. If you haven't, that's fine. That's something that we're probably going to pick up on in the next couple of weeks or so. We'll be following that story closely. But there are a lot of stories that are being popularized via video right across the United States of America, and it's hitting us over here in the UK. And as we constantly say on this particular show, most of this stuff doesn't actually make the headlines. We as a people here don't see most of this stuff on the news. It doesn't come on our news. And even on the CNN that comes from Skype, by the time we get it, it's all been edited and that stuff's gone out of it. The only way that we get it is by the films that you guys are putting up, posting yourselves, Anonymous, Black Lives Matter, and all the other organizations that are committed to supporting these acts of brutality by the police against the citizens of America.
Well, wait, I want to say, Kervin, the Goolsby case was a particularly malicious case because there was a white woman with a baby, and she felt like this black teenager was going to rob her. That's her paranoia, her racism emanating from her skin like sweat from a scorpion in the desert. And she called the 911, police came. They came and tackled this kid and arrested him for no reason other than her paranoia. And it's no different than what I'm telling you people. In Israel, these white settlers, these Jewish settlers, scream at a Palestinian, he's got a knife, he's got a knife. And all the next thing you know, the guy is shot dead. He's shot dead, just shot dead.
Yeah,
because
it's absolutely deplorable.
Settler. And here a white woman in America says, he's a black, I'm afraid they come and arrest him. Now, when do we move from the next level, from arresting these innocent people to shooting them dead on the street? And this is racism.
And the bottom line is, but it's already been done. John Crawford was killed. Yeah. Tamir Rice was killed. Sandra Bland was killed.
I agree with Kervin. It's already been done. Already been done.
I agree 100%. But the first thing and you know, if I can kind of chime in here, the first thing I would say is that, you know, if we can prevent this stuff before it happens, instead of after it happens, and you know, and start going a hissy fit and throwing, you know, and grilling tofu dogs out in the parking lot of the police station, you know, if we can stop it before that, you know, like a bunch of hippies or whatever, you know, if we can stop it way before that, then yeah, you know, I'm all for it. And as far as the racism, and as far as the racism go, as a person of color, you know, the first thing a white person would say, and I'm sorry, but you know, actually no, I'm not sorry. Because I tell it like it is, okay? The first thing they would say, oh, no, I'm not racist. I got plenty of black friends.
I'm tired of that old rope. I'm tired of that old rope.
I hear that too. I'm not anti-Semitic. I have a lot of Jewish friends. Yeah. I hear it all the time.
I'm tired of that old rope. That's dead and buried in the water. That don't cut no water with me.
Oldest line in a book. And people use it like a badge of honor.
The bottom line is, 1 minute, gentlemen, the bottom line is, one of our regular guests that we actually have on this particular show is a former police officer by the name of Alex Salazar, and we love him dearly. In fact, we had him on the show. I think you was listening to him last week, Mikey, right?
Yeah, it was.
But Alex has
October 10th show.
Yeah, but Alex often tells us, right, of the sheer institutionalized racism that is harbored within the whole infrastructure of law enforcement, from the recruiting to the training to the putting out onto the street.
May I touch on that history just a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, here's the thing, right? Right at the moment of, right about the same time period in America when slavery was being abolished in the late 1800s, you had a professional class of men whose job it was, all over the country, you had these individual cells of men, right, that were about to lose their jobs and their livelihoods, and their job was to run down, hunt human beings, and put them in cages. Every municipal police force in the United States originated from unemployed former Pinkertons and slave catchers. Okay, this professional class of people, they were the Pinkertons were a group of private security type people that were kind of like Blackwater. They were the Blackwater of the 1800s. Okay, and literally our police forces, the majority of every major metropolitan police force and every large police force in this country originated out of formerly unemployed slave catchers. So from the inception of our police forces to present day, we have cultural, deep-seated institutional racism. And anybody who's been to jail in America will see it. It's like being transported back in time. You go to jail in America and all of a sudden, if you're white, you turn into a minority. Like it's Chocolate City once you go into the hands of the state, and it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's just pure on its face, institutionally racist. I mean, if you want to look at sentencing guidelines, if you want to look at ticket quotas and how often black folks are ticketed more than whites, I mean, it's on its face. Until we can actually honest up as a society and address this institutional racism, we're not going to evolve in a positive way. I don't think it's all about race, but I think race is a key component. If we want some kind of substantive change within the police forces, we're going to have to deal with that institutional racism as a society. It's bigger than the police.
Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
generation.
One other question. One of the things that I see seemingly creeping up quite increasingly on videos is a lot of black officers getting involved with the beatings of black individuals. What's the reason for that, do you think?
They're brainwashed.
I believe it's an authority problem. Racism is a problem in the institution, but it's a problem that wouldn't actually affect that many lives if it wasn't for the authority that police have been given. There's plenty of racist people out in the world. You can't get rid of them all. It's not going to happen, unfortunately. I think they're assholes, but you can't get rid of it all. But if you don't give them power, they can't do shit. They're just another jackass. And I think the half of the problem is that they have power. They get authority, even the black ones that beat upon black people. It's an authority problem first that empowers the worst of humanity to do the worst they can.
And that's the real irony, isn't it? Is the fact that people with authority think that gives them permission to be bullies.
Absolutely. Well, it does. Authority grants them. Authority is the belief that one human being can. That's what I'm trying to think of now. My brain's farted.
Before you carry on, that's probably what I meant when I was speaking earlier, when Mikey was talking about the three categories of police officers, and I said, well, no, there's a fourth, and the fourth is the one who actually thinks he is the law. That's the type of officer that I'm referring to, who thinks he is the law, and anything that he does is lawful.
Exactly.
That's frightening because it happens to be on the increase.
It does, yeah. And it's because of I usually blame super heavy leftists and super neoconservatives. The two polarized wings on that bird of fascism are just, they're pushing for it. The leftists want more police authority so they can enforce their laws, and the neoconservatives, God, they're worse. I mean, they preach that police are deities who can do no wrong, and that just, God, that grates on me. That's why
I'm in the God killing business.
Well,
yep.
Killing
gods.
I'm in a Goliath killing business, so let's kill some more Goliaths. David.
I'm down.
Well, I'm for the justice building system. I find that it takes activists like you guys to be against things so that people like I can be for things. And I firmly believe that all great societies have good and bad, right and wrong. And how we integrate those in our daily lives, and in whom we trust to have the authority over the lives of ourselves, our parents, and our children matter immensely to us all. But when we lose those fundamental principles upon which this nation was built, we believe that all men are created equal. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that when a society is oppressed, it has a right to revolt, that we have these rights. And primary, when you talk about the Constitution of the United States, the very first word it says is, we ordain this new Constitution, this new form of government. And the very first reason is to establish justice. To establish justice. And the more police we have, the more authority over us we have, the more racism and inequality we have, the more denial of the quality of life and the pursuit of happiness that we have as free individuals with certain inalienable rights given to us by the Almighty Creator or nature or whatever you want to say. But as long as we hand the power over our lives, our freedom to act, our will, the longer we hand that over, we have no justice. And no justice means no freedom.
It also means no peace.
Well, let me tell you, you can be in a peaceful world and be unpeaceful. That's psychological. But the idea is justice gives you the right to be at peace or not to be at peace. But justice is the fundamental thing. Even in the Christian Bible, that all these, and the Jewish Bible, all these neoconservative, Republican, Ted Cruz, fascistic beasts that have come from under a rock at the bottom of the ocean, polluted by oil from BP and Exxon, even they must know that it says 3 times, justice shall you pursue, justice shall you pursue, justice shall you pursue. And without justice, there is no government. There is no society. And we need activists. We need people with cell phones to record the acts of these oppressors, these slave owners who would have us so denigrated, so degraded, so dehumiliated that we cannot exist as free souls. And if we are not a free soul, then we have no life. And let me say one more thing. We are not all guilty, but we are all responsible.
Do you know, I was looking at,
and I don't speak with. I want to say I don't speak with much passion, but I'll work on it.
Yeah, that's fine. That's cool, David. We know where you're at. But I was looking at not an issue relating to black people, but I was looking at this recent film that's come up, depicting again the brutal killing of the homeless man Kelly Thomas. And that particular film that I've watched,
he was begging for his life the entire time.
Absolutely, he was calling his dad. He was saying, "Please, please," and then more police arrive, and
I don't think I could watch that happen in real life. I mean, I would go to prison.
I would be lying down next to him, or I'd be handcuffed in the back of another vehicle, because
that's exactly how I feel.
There's no way that I could permit that to take place in my presence. And towards the end, you see a lot of people walking around and talking, "Oh, this is bad and this is bad," and I'm thinking to myself,
"They put me in prison."
I'd have to be in there. I'd have to be up in there.
I'd get me some cop.
You know?
There was just a quote I read the other day that said, "Protest is when you say you don't like something, and resistance is when you stop it." And I've been so frustrated for so long now. I stopped doing protests. I don't do them anymore because I think it's absolutely anemic and it's pathetic. It's begging on your knees for your oppressors to stop doing what you know in your soul is wrong, and I find that a completely disgusting thing. I was actually just talking to Mike about getting people together and stopping these things.
Yeah.
Stopping civil forfeiture, stopping murder, stopping people being persecuted for victimless crimes. It's absolutely disgusting practice in this country.
I agree with Shane. Protest is kind of like masturbating. It feels really good, and then you get off, and then you're passive for a little while. You know, unless you're going to make a daily life change. Okay, if you don't like something a corporation is doing, I got an idea. Stop giving them your fucking money. Okay, that's direct democracy. Vote with your dollars. Change a life pattern. Research corporations and their interface with government, and do something about it. If you can change your daily life pattern, that's way better than masturbating, because you're actually doing something about that boot of oppression on your neck. When people go and protest and march in the street, all they're doing is getting used to the boot on their neck.
The one thing that I had a thought on just the other day was there are a lot of people talk about what they can't do. But there are two things that people have the power to influence and make the change with. And you've just pointed it out there. The two things that they have is their money and their vote. And they can choose to do what they do with both. Right? You can choose where you spend your money, and you can choose who you give your vote to. And you shouldn't be giving your vote to any organization, any political party that would allow, subscribe to this type of policing anywhere in your community. And
go ahead.
And you shouldn't be giving your money to any organization that supports anything that permits or allows or subscribes to this type of policing taking place in your community. You have the power. You have the power to vote with your money and your voice, and people should start to use it.
I think I agree on the money thing, because that's... Oh, you can go, Derek. You can go.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you, but
no, you're good. You're good.
And I agree that. Well, I disagree on the voting part, because and that's why I became an anarchist as well.
Gentlemen, I just got to warn you, we're down to our last 5 minutes.
Okay. Well, and I'll say this real quick. The reason why I became an anarchist is because the only time that you see a person that was, I don't know by where you are, but here in the United States, the only time that you see a politician is when they run votes or money. And I have a good friend of mine, or guy that lives next to me. He says, "Oh, but if you want to change the police brutality, you have to do it from the inside out."
I fucking hate that shit. I agree with Derek. I was just about to mention that I don't agree on voting. I find democracy to be a system where 51% of people can say, well, we want this opinion enforced, and the police will enforce it through violence. So I find voting to be a deplorable practice as well. Corporations you can vote with your dollar. It works fine because they don't have authority to use violence to get what they want. They have to do it through free trade. Otherwise, it's theft. But the police are given authority, and so they extend that to use their violence to enforce the opinion of the majority. And so I find democracy to be a system that overrides self-governance.
Well, gentlemen,
amen.
Well, here we are. We've got 3 minutes left, and I want to leave the closing to my very good friend, Dr. David Ramey, to round up what we've heard tonight and take it home, David.
I want to thank our superb guest for being with us, and I'm going to start watching all these tapes, and I'm glad Frank finally left when you threatened to tweak his nipple, Mike Blue Hair. And you asked him if he thought you were attractive. Then he really took off. I think he was mad at you because you caught him coming out of a night district, and he probably was afraid his wife had hired an investigator to photograph him. I don't know what it was.
I'm all about trying to mitigate violence. I don't want to have to hit Frank. I would rather make Frank go away.
You wanted him to tweak your nipple. I know all about it. I heard
a pinch and squeal from time to time.
Now I want to finish by saying this. This was a superb show, and it really brought to my mind for the first time the role of the smart camera as like a weapon against the police. And just as the pen is far more powerful than the sword in the long run, the iPhone may be far more powerful than any weapon these weaponized militaristic oppressors called police have over us. And I think it's the provocative and somewhat aggressive stance that activists like you guys have that are allowing us to live more freely in the future. I would like to tell our audience that what we've learned is photography is a form of power, and that we have a right to photograph these people as long as we don't interfere with their police activity. And they cannot destroy our film. And we have to understand their role, as they are taught, is to lie and to intimidate us from, as Mike so well said, exercising our rights. And while they may accuse us falsely, we have an obligation to go forward, even though we know that, as Mike said, the operator cops have a lot of power, can be dangerous, and they're risk. And finally, I would like to say this. If you are not willing to fight for your own freedoms against these class traitors, as Mike called them, and if you're not willing to stand up for what is right in the face of what he also said was creative articulation, which is police lying, we will continue to have our children lie dead on the street. We will have people who are stopped for a traffic light shot in the back with evidence planted on them. And finally, we will find the decoupling of our freedom. And we in America will no longer be home of the brave and land of the free, but home of the cowards and land of the slaves.
Thank you very much.
I will contend that the pen is only mightier in communication, and that actions speak louder than words. I think pens are for communicating as swords are for putting down Jack